Come have a seat and sip some tea. It's tech, entertainment, and art.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode, another edition, another chapter in the epic tale that is T-Talk.
Not chapter, but chapter.
Exactly. Chapter, not chapter. We don't pronounce CH in Puerto Rico, okay? We only pronounce SH. This week, our brave heroes, Sean and Abdiel, continue the fight against the evil machinations of Corona King Stay Home or I'll Kill You, Dark Lord of the Flu, also known in other areas, particularly the East, as Cough Barone, Don't Come Near Anyone, or Your Lungs Will Dry Like Raisins. I prefer the former, it's a little bit shorter. People in the East like their lungs names. So tell me, Sean. Tell me all about what has happened to you this past few weeks. Tell me everything. How have you been able to survive? Spare no details. Let our audience know.
As far as like our family is concerned, nothing has really changed too much for us after the initial shelter in place. We're still going to work. Our county in this area is not really shut down too much. So like in comparison to you, I think even you, like the Bay Area where you're at was sheltered in place like 2 weeks, I think, before our county was.
Mm-hmm.
So I could only imagine.
That's right, man. Wow. Wow. Thank you, Sean. That was real tough. That was real tough. That sounded horrible. I hope our audience is not traumatized by the story that you just told them. I'm sure they're experiencing similar things. My situation in the Bay Area here in San Francisco is not as bad as yours, but it's similar.
No, I'm sorry. Mine. Did I say? I maybe misspoke. Mine's not that bad actually. Mine.
I'm messing. With you. I'm messing. It's a joke for the audience. I hope maybe the joke was too meta and no one was able to catch it.
I think so.
Cash. No one was able to cash it. No one was able to get some cash out of that joke. Okay, so let's get to it. Let's not waste anyone's time here. That's not what we're all about. We're about entertaining you. Okay, we're about entertaining your ear holes. We'll throw information. We throw it out there. It enters your ears, goes straight to your brains, and it produces dopamine, which is a liquid in your brain that makes you feel happy. That's what we do. Okay, that's what we do here. First off, congratulations to you to listening to another episode. You're welcome.
Hey, I want to say, like, it seems like last I looked on Google Play, we have like 50 or so loyal listeners. It almost seems like, for at least the T-Talk, the main T-Talk. Each episode is usually hovering around 50 to 60 listens. So there's a base there. There's a little base.
There's a base there. And what I want to tell our listeners, those 50 strong listeners, is that the show's gonna get better. We have some plans. I have some plans. So we're gonna bring up the value, the entertainment value of this podcast in the future. But you're gonna have to wait a little bit. We're busy people around here. But once we get it going, it's gonna be real good. So
have you ever seen
loyal
Parks and Rec? Have you ever seen?
Dude, I just watched it with my wife.
There's an episode where like she's running for city council, I think, and they're like trying to go build a big platform for her to stand on to like give a speech or whatever, and then like they get pulled over. They can't take all their stuff because they don't have a commercial license, so like they're only able to take like a few pieces of wood for the platform, and they can't bring all the rugs, like, and it's supposed to be like on an ice rink, and so like they run out of rug, and then they're like trying to. The music starts playing, and like they can't finish the walk, and then like the platform's super small, and so there's a platform for T-Talk. It's small, and we got there a little awkwardly, but it's there now. I guess we're standing on that little platform now.
So what I'm gonna do in the future, just to give people like a tease of what's gonna happen in the future, is one, we're gonna bring up the value of your listens. So what does that mean? You're gonna have to wait. Can't talk about it too much right now. And the second thing is that we're gonna bring to you. I don't know how to talk about this exactly because I don't want it to seem strange, but we're gonna bring to you advertisement. And what that means is what you're gonna advertise? Well, what are you talking about? No. That is the old way of advertisement. Okay, the new way of advertisement is that we will talk to you about products that you want and that you need and that are affordable and stuff like that. Okay, so we're gonna be doing you a favor. You know how people look at like they look for deals, right? And they buy sometimes like I remember my mom before she would go to the grocery, she had like this little pamphlet thingy that said all the deals on all the foods.
Coupons?
Not coupons. It was just a thing that said the deals. What's on the deal?
Oh yeah.
Like
yeah,
supermarkets.
yeah.
Supermarkets would give out this paper that would say what is on deal. So that's what we're gonna do for you with things that are related to entertainment and technology. So if you want to buy a computer, one of these days in the future, might take a few months, we're gonna bring those deals to you in a timely fashion and things like that. But I'm working on the business plan, so it'll come. Okay, just wait for it patiently. And do you 50 listeners, if we're gonna reward you by giving you things real hard. Okay, so thank you.
We should work on a giveaway or something. Yeah.
No, yeah, we will work something on that, but I can't talk about it because I don't know what we're gonna do. But we are gonna do something. Okay, so let's talk about let's get down to business here. There's two things that I want to talk about today. I'm gonna talk about Google Stadia. I was gonna talk about that in the last episode, but I didn't have a chance, so I'm gonna talk about it in this episode. It's gonna be really short, just only like 5 minutes.
No, I think it'll be a little bit longer.
It might be a little bit longer. You're right. If I say 5 minutes, it's probably going to take 15. So, and then I want to talk about Google certificates. Google certificates.
I want to talk about this too.
There's a website called Coursera. It's one of those websites that where you can study online, but this one is a little bit different because this one. They're in business with like other big universities and big companies, and that's where the courses come from. So it's sort of like a higher one of the most respected online course websites out there, because there's a few of them. There's like Udemy. There's like what's the other one that a lot of people use? It's not Alba. It's like Linda. There's like Linda. There's Udemy. There's stuff like that. But Coursera is considered to be like top tier. So why am I talking about Coursera? Wasn't I talking about Google a second ago? Well, it's because that's the platform that Google is using to provide said certificates. So we're gonna be talking about that. How about you, Sean? What are you gonna talk about?
I was actually gonna talk about the same thing, but prior to that, I have some sports news, which I'm very excited to talk about. I am so excited that sports are re-entering our life. I know you're as interested in sports as I'm interested in video games, so you'll have to just bear with the.
That's right,
and
totally
pretend like you enjoy it.
Bro, I am a great pretender. Great pretender. No, I'm kidding. No, I enjoy sports. I respect sports. I think they're cool and all that. But yeah, whatever. I think video games are better. Okay, so I'm gonna start. So Stadia. If you Google it right now, you go on the interwebs. Type in that search bar Stadia, STADI. I'm gonna start again. STADIA. I always have a problem with I because in Spanish I is E, and I always want to say E, but I have to remember it's I, and then A is A. Anyway, so Google Stadia.
So your 5 minutes are now up. So next,
So Stadia is essentially like Netflix but in video games. You pay a subscription fee, and you play games online on any like Netflix. It's available on every screen. You can use it in a web browser. It can be on your phone. It can be on your TV. It can be anywhere. But for your TV, you actually need like a one of those Chromecasters. But anyway, so it works pretty much the same as Netflix, right? So you log into it, and then you have a variety of games, and you can play them, and they're all being streamed. The difference between Stadia and Netflix is that you have a subscription, right, where you have games available to play. You can choose, there's no added cost apart from the subscription. But on top of that, you can buy games, additional games for it. It's like, imagine if Netflix allowed you to like rent or buy movies.
Like Amazon.
So more like, actually,
It's
more like Amazon. Yeah, I was just gonna say that. More like Amazon. So yeah, so it's more like an Amazon Video kind of service, but for video games. What's really cool about it is that there's nothing like it out there. So you don't need a beefy computer. You don't need anything. You can play it on your even on your phone. All you need, you are gonna need a controller. But if you're playing your computer, you can use your mouse and keyboard, and the controller can be any controller. It can be a PlayStation controller, it can be a Xbox controller, wireless, of course, but it needs to be wireless, and Google Stadia control. What I used it for a little bit. I only did the trial, and I was really impressed by how good it worked. I did not think it was gonna work that well. The reason for that is because I've used other streaming services in the past, because this idea of streaming games is not new, and they all have failed miserably.
Why?
Including PlayStation Now, which is PlayStation's console like own streaming service.
Why did they
which
fail?
is also available now. So the quality of the image, goes bad really quick. You know how if you don't have a good internet speed on Netflix, the quality of the image will go down.
Mm-hmm.
So that happens on games for the same reasons, right? Because your internet is not as fast. You need really high speed internet to work. And I have high speed internet. Even my internet gave me trouble on those other streaming services. But the worst thing is not just the image; it's the input latency. So like, I'll press a button over here, and then it takes like a second to happen on the screen.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
And that makes games unplayable.
Yeah,
you can't play them. You might as well just shut down the thing, forget about it. So Stadia has been the best out of all the streaming services that I've used in this regard. It did give me a little bit of trouble with that, but very little, not that much. The other thing that I was surprised with that makes it different than the other services is that the other services would all let you play games from remote computers, or in the case of PlayStation, like remote PlayStations. So playing the games on those streaming services was a similar experience than playing a game on a PlayStation, for example, in the case of PlayStation Now, or in the case of the other streaming services like Nvidia Now, or like GeForce Now, I think it's called. You're playing the game off a computer that GeForce owns, like that Nvidia owns. So there's like a boot up process. You have to wait. You have to wait for the thing to boot up. You have to wait for the games to load. That's not how it is with a Stadia. Stadia did not do that. Stadia is not just loading computers with games or consoles with games. Stadia servers are consoles built from the ground up to work in this manner. Everyone else, what they're doing is that they're hooking up their components to an internet connection, and they're letting you play through a sort of virtual machine type service. That's not what Google is doing. Like I said, the servers are actual consoles that process game in a unique way that is different from all other consoles.
Interesting.
The games have to be modified to be able to work with Stadia services because they're being run natively on the Stadia servers.
I have two questions for you.
Tell me.
Maybe you're gonna answer them. So maybe you said this too. Can normal games that are like on other platforms be played on it, like PlayStation, Xbox?
Yes, but only if they're released for Stadia. It's not like that. Maybe this will answer your question. It's not like they can be like, oh yeah, we're just upload the game.
Yeah.
We're upload the latest Batman game to our servers. No, that would not work because Stadia, it has its own like coding system, its own language, its own architecture is what I should say, not coding system, but it has its own unique architecture. So releasing a game for the Stadia involves the same way as releasing a game for a PlayStation or an Xbox, meaning that they need to be modified to fit within that architecture.
Right. Okay, and then my second question, I forgot what it was because you were talking. But it dealt with. Oh yeah, so you said that each server is like its own console. So is each server specific to a user, or can multiple users use a server? Do you know?
I'm not exactly sure how, but I think that a server is just a huge computer,
Right.
with a lot of parts. So I think that multiple. If you look at a server, it looks like this huge block on a room, and there's a lot of them in rooms, and these rooms are air conditioned and stuff like that. So one of those blocks are multiple of people playing from one of those big huge blocks. Yeah, maybe, probably. I think so. Yeah, but those blocks are also just like a whole bunch of computers just stacked together. Yeah, that's what a server is basically. So if you see a server, and like I said, you'll see a room that is filled with these huge rectangles that are the size of a person, and you think, oh, each rectangle it's one thing. It's like, no, each rectangle is like a whole bunch of computers put together. But okay, so that's why it is. But what does that mean? Abdiel, okay, it has its own architecture. Wow, congratulations. Who cares? Well, what it means is that the game's performance is just way better than everything else, especially how the games boot. When I went to play on a game, I literally pressed play, and the game just started immediately, like if it was coming out of my computer. There was no logging process, no boot up process. The game just started immediately. And when I wanted to finish the game, I literally just got my mouse, pressed a little X that it's on top of the GUI of the game, and it just closed immediately. Just complete instantaneous service. There's nothing like that right now in video games out there. So kudos to Stadia for that. The problem that I had though is that you still need a lot of power. I couldn't run the games at 1080p. I could only run them at 720p. I couldn't afford my internet was not good enough for 1080p. And but I think I was still running them at 60 frames per second as opposed to 30 frames per second. But the point is that it's just that the experience was not optimum. There was latency at times as well, which is a no-no. But another thing is that the architecture is designed in a way that it has this thing called what was it called? I forgot the name. But it's basically like it has like machine learning implemented in a certain way that the game almost can predict what you're gonna do.
AI,
and that's like AI. Yeah, it's some kind of AI that the game knows all the things that you can possibly do, and it will load frames before you do those things, so that if you choose to do those things, the game already loaded those frames. So any kind of latency that might come, it gets rid of any latency that way. Because what happens is that if I make a command, I have a controller and I press a button that sends a command, and that command has to travel, right? And it always takes time. Even if it's just a little bit of time, it always takes time. Sometimes the time is so small that you can barely notice it. But like I said, on every other service that I've used, you could always notice the latency, even though you could barely notice it, but you can notice it. Same, and I'm talking about PlayStation Now. I was playing PlayStation Now with my wife. The other time I was playing a Ratchet and Clank game with her in PlayStation Now, which is the same thing as streaming service, and there was latency on it. Small, but there was. With Stadia, no latency. No latency. I pressed a button and it happened immediately on the screen. They did say that that's not true. Like Stadia said, no, actually, wait a minute, there is a little bit of latency, but it's like 0.0000001 seconds. So
indiscernible for humans, yeah.
Yeah, so for the human eye, I can't notice it. So that's what's special about it. So what does it mean? It means that right now, Stadia, I don't think it works that great. If you want to go try it out, do it because it's free, so you have nothing to lose. But I think we have to wait like 5 or 10 more years before we're at a point where this can happen. But it's exciting because that means that in the future, 10 years from now, people are not going to be buying consoles, Sean. That's going to be a thing of the past.
Yeah, I was thinking
people
about that when you said that.
People are just going to pay $10 a month, and they'll have access to PlayStation Network and they'll play games through their web browsers, through their phones, through everywhere, and that's how it's gonna be.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing dependent upon that is fast internet. Like for where I live, I
Yeah.
just got fast internet like a year and a half ago. Otherwise, like for
Mhm.
weddings and stuff, if I had to upload videos to the internet, I'd have to go to some other location that had faster internet.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yeah. So uh, coastal cities always have good internet, but the further you go into the mainland, then the harder the companies that provide internet don't really push that far into the mainland. So
Yeah.
you have to get, if you want high speed internet where in the middle of the country, for example, you need satellite internet, which will cost you an eye and a leg. However the expression goes.
You know, the funny thing is, like, we went to visit my in-laws in Maine, and we were gonna go visit my wife's sister, and her husband and the kids. Middle of nowhere in Maine, not the place people go visit in Maine, because Maine's an awesome place to visit. This is like northern Maine, out in the middle of nowhere. Like they don't even have town the area. It's not like Bay Area or Monterey County. It's like Quadrant 3, District
wow.
12.
Oh my goodness.
Quarter
Like
quell.
Straight exactly, straight out of the Hunger Games.
So yeah, it's crazy. But he had like 100 upload speed and like 30.
Wow.
It was weird. It was random. I'm sure there's some governmental reason for that. I don't know why, but anyway, I digress.
Okay. He might have had satellite internet.
Could be.
Okay, so
I like blaming the government though. That was better
yeah,
for me.
yeah, of course.
Okay, so today is July 30th at 2:29 p.m. Western time zone. So that means in 1 hour, the NBA, National Basketball Association, will be starting up again. They were starting March 11th. They were suspended because of COVID. So how is it going to work? What's going to happen? They created a huge bubble. They just put a big bubble and they dropped it on Miami, and then that's where they're at. No, that's not what happened.
Yeah, of course.
No, what happened?
They're all gonna play with hazmat suits on.
Yeah. No, they have been basically on lockdown in Disney World for like the last couple weeks. The players and their families, and it was like the 8 teams from the Western Conference Final and the 8 teams from the Eastern Conference Final, and then a few teams below who could possibly make the playoffs. So, and there's like no crowds. There's just the referees, and I don't know if they're gonna have to wear masks or anything, but I think they're testing like every day or whatever. But I mean, they all went in that bubble fine. They all got tested and they were allowed to go in, and they've been testing. So I don't know if they're gonna continue to test or not because they can't leave the facility. So, personally, I am just so excited that it's starting up again because, as the audience probably is aware, if you've ever listened to me, I'm pretty strict about what I watch. Like, I've mentioned, like, before I was watching Star Trek. I actually stopped watching the old Star Trek. Like, I was watching, I'm like, man, like, this show in the 90s, it's, like, all about sex. Like, every other episode was, like, and so I just stopped watching it. But there's just the point I'm trying to make is there's just so few things I feel like on TV now that are watchable and don't really, like, pollute the mind. Or add like unnecessary things to it. Whereas the NBA, for the most part, is pretty clean. It's just a sporting event, so I'm looking forward to watching those games. But I'm even more excited because come September, football season's starting, and I don't know for a Puerto Rican, but I don't know how excited you are about American football, but I love American football.
Yeah.
So the way American football is doing it is obviously they can't go into a bubble. They're still going to be flying their teams in and out of cities and stuff like that. But I think from what I listened to another podcast besides our great podcast, it's called Fantasy Footballers Podcast. 3 guys, very successful podcast. And they kind of have been giving updates on COVID, as well as like if you're into fantasy football, what you should be looking for players and stuff. But I guess, from my understanding, they have to maintain a 5% testing rate of COVID below to play for a week, is my understanding, and they're testing every day. So, like, for example, they just did a round of testing, and did you get it, Abdul? Did you get the you?
I didn't.
No, okay.
I was just scratching. I was just like,
Oh, okay.
scratching.
For our listeners, Abdul was digging pretty deep in his nose, but
I was scratching.
So the NBA has to maintain 5% below, or sorry, the NFL. What does that mean? So, like, currently 90 individuals tested positive for COVID within the NFL. And you think 90, that sounds like a lot. There's only like 11 players on each team for offense and defense, and then you have but the NFL includes the camera guys, it includes the referees, it includes administration. I actually don't know if administration is involved in the testing, but regardless, they just have to be lower than that. And if anybody tests positive, they have to be off the field for an undisclosed amount of time. So I don't know. I'm a little worried about that. I feel like there's going to be a little behind closed doors. Like if Pat Mahomes, the best quarterback in the NFL, tests positive, I just have a feeling he's not going to be off the field as long as, say, someone from the Jaguars who's just a random offensive lineman. You know, nobody's going to care. Some stadiums are completely closed, so they're going to be playing with an empty audience. No one's going to be there except for the announcers. Other stadiums are going to be at 25% capacity. So that would mean like every third seat would be filled, more or less.
So, football players, NBA players, they get paid a lot of money. And a lot of that money comes from the tickets that they sell at the stadiums, right? Or no?
Yeah,
or
no. A lot of it comes from
advertisement.
Yeah, so if you're watching an NBA game and you see like commercials, that's a big one. Or you even see like on the court or on the sides of the court, you'll see like, you know, I'm trying to think of a sponsor, Pepsi, Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
They pay for those advertisements.
Yeah, so that means that most of the audience has always been on the maybe TV and also watching games on the internet. But that means that now even more people are gonna have to watch it that way.
Yeah.
I think that might be good for them. They might realize they might make even more money that way.
Yeah, I know. Like,
so we'll see.
For me, well, I mean, they already are pretty much into the NBA has their own app, and NFL has all that stuff, and streaming and YouTube channel, blah blah blah. So I don't think they were behind the times on that necessarily. I just think have you ever been to a game before, like an NFL or NBA game? Or
I have been to an NBA game. Yeah,
I mean,
the Golden Gate, the Warriors or whatever, the Warriors.
Did you enjoy it?
Whatever they call here in San Francisco. Yeah, it was great. It was awesome.
So there's like a nostalgia to it, right? Obviously, you can watch the game at home and probably actually have a little bit better viewing experience, depending on your TV and stuff like that. But there is a nostalgia to like to being on there, being in the stadium when it's packed and everyone's screaming and but anyway, I'm just looking forward to it.
I've never been actually. Since you asked me the question, have I ever been to a game? I've actually never been to games until I came to San Francisco. So since I've moved to the 2 years that I lived here, I've been to 2 baseball games and 1 basketball game.
Okay.
When I went for the basketball game, it was the Warriors against. Do you remember who they were playing? Who the Warriors were playing that time we went to see them in Oakland? I don't know, but I know they lost, and they didn't have their guy Curry.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. And then and then I've been to the Giants, right? The San Francisco Giants. So I've been to 2 of those, and yeah, those are fun. I mostly go for the beer and the fries and the burgers.
Yeah.
And then you have to pay like $50 for all that, but it's fine. Whatever. Who cares about who needs money? Whatever. Um, but yeah, I definitely would rather go to a game again and experiencing it that way than watching it on TV.
I don't know what it's gonna be like with such a small audience. I was, I'm playing with the idea of going to a game in Santa Clara to watch the Niners play, but I'm not sure. Not sure.
Mm. Be careful. But I'm sure you'll be fine. If they practice, if you do social distancing and you get the mask, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So is that it, or
Yeah. On that,
is there anything else?
that's it. And I think we were
Okay,
both
so
going to
moving
talk
on.
about Google. So
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about now about the Google certificates that they're offering online as of right now. I believe right now they're offering 2. Other certificates kind of come and go. Oh, they're offering 3 right now.
I think that's what I understood.
Because I know they have the IT professional certificate, and then they have the automating or automation with Python certificate. Those are the 2 that I saw. Which other one are you thinking about?
I didn't write it down.
Okay. So anyway, I actually started both. However, I did cancel the automating with Python one, which is that one is it's all about programming. Because at least for me, and I'm gonna talk about that one first, since that's the one that.
Can I give a little background, Abdiel?
Well, anyway, yeah. Go ahead and give it a little background, please.
So I got a call from you about a contract we had kind of agreed on for a book, but you said you mentioned you were busy, so you couldn't follow through on the picture part of it. And you mentioned one of the things you were busy about was you were working on getting certified from Google for IT specialist, we could call it, right? IT certified.
Yeah, it's a IT support specialist professional certificate, something like that it's called. Yeah.
And so basically what they do is through Coursera, right? Coursera?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's right.
Which is basically a teaching platform, an online teaching platform. You can get certified in a few weeks or a few months, depending on your pace.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, did you look into it?
I'm on the 3rd week
of the IT support.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on the 3rd. I think I just finished the 3rd week today. So the IT support professional certificate, it basically goes through it's made up of 5 courses, and each course is divided into weeks. But like you said, you can finish what they have for 1 week. So for example, course 1 has 6 weeks. What you go through each week, you can actually do, because it's at your own pace. You can actually go through the material for 1 week in 1 day, for example, or a few days. Because like you said, it's self-paced. But then you go through the first course, but then you have to do the second course and the third one. So it can add up. So yeah, let's see how am I going to talk about this. I did write some things down. So I'm gonna talk about the one with Python first, and then I guess we can both talk about the IT professional, since we're both doing it. So the one with Python, it's essentially like the certificate says, it's automating with Python. It's showing it talks about programming with Python, which is a programming language. In programming, when it comes to programming in computers, there's a ton of languages. I think there's like 50 or more, probably more. Python is one of the most popular ones. By the time they made the automating with Python certificate course, they say in the course that it's the 4th most popular. But in some websites like GitHub, which is a big programming website, on there it's the 1st most popular language. And the way that they determine that is by how many people are looking on the internet, and specifically on GitHub, information about that language. Like they're communicating about the language, they're talking about the language, they're trying to figure out problems about it. That's how they determine which one is the most popular one. I am an animator, and I use Maya, and Maya has its own scripting program called MEL, MEL, but they been using Python for a while. to the point where they're gonna get rid of MEL, which is their proprietary, is their language, right? So they're gonna get rid of that, and they're going to go full Python with Maya. And so that's how big Maya is becoming in the industry.
What's the drive with Python? Why do people like it? Is it easy? Is it simple?
It's very easy to program. Yeah, it's very easy to read and to kind of self-document. But the way the programming work, and this is kind of my experience and my opinion, so take it with a grain of salt, is that the more readable a program language is, the weaker it is. The less, the more extensive the code has to be, and things like that. So that's why people sometimes lean to more complicated languages. Sometimes more complicated languages are a little bit more powerful. But the thing that Python does is that Python, it's easy to read and also easy to program. It's also very powerful. You can make games on it and everything. You can make anything on Python. And another thing that Python has that is separate from other programs is that it works with Windows pretty well, because it came from a Windows language. It's like some Russian, I think, some Russian or some German person made the language, and he was using this other Windows language as a basis for it. But anyway, so the reason why, so I started taking the course, and on the first course, so like I said, I think on this one there's actually 6 courses that you need to go through to get certified. I go through the first week, no problem. I think I finished it in 1 day. I go to the second week, and on the second quiz for the second week, I'm like, whoa. Like, I get a problem, and they're like, go ahead and program this stuff. Go ahead and make us this little script that will order this. You're gonna input 5 words, and it's going to order those words in. It's gonna arrange the words, I should say, in the order of length of the word. So if a word is longer, it will appear later, and if a word is shorter, it'll appear first. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't know. And then if you look at the scripts, you're probably gonna, and anyone that doesn't really know a lot about programming, it's like DEF, arrange lowercase word, parentheses, word 1, comma, word 2, comma, word 3, parentheses. Go, now you go. I'm like, I don't know. So I have to go back to the previous classes. I have to start reading the supplementary readings that they give you. I have to go to the websites about Python, and then all of a sudden I'm spending 2 hours to be able to accomplish this one thing on the quiz. So on one hand, fantastic. I'm learning. Fantastic. This is actually making me learn. This is not just giving me a certificate as a gift, which I hate that, right? That a lot of companies that are corrupt, essentially, many colleges, they're like, oh yeah, you'll pay us some of this money, we'll give you the certificate, and we'll teach you, but they don't really teach you anything. So, but on the other hand, it's like, it's taking me so long that I'm like, and I don't want to be too critical, but I feel like the program is not really teaching me that well. Like, I'm doing a better job at teaching myself than the course was doing. So I decided to cancel it and learn and have a grasp on Python and the principle of animation and the principle of arithmetic, because that's something that you really need to program, and math. And then I'll come back, and then I'll continue with the course. One thing that I also don't like about the course is that they love telling you, you don't need any previous education. You don't need any requirements to go to this course. Anyone can do it. No. With automating with Python, you do need to know arithmetic, have a concept of what that is. You don't need to be a great mathematician by any means, but you need to have, you need to be good at math, basically, and not just like, oh, I have a knack for math kind of thing. Okay, no, you have to know concept of math, like calculus and things like that, and just be able to think in that sort of mathematical way. So they said that, right? Like I said, I made that observation that they tell you that you don't need to do anything. On the other hand, every time I've tried to learn programming, and ever since I was a kid, and I went to high school, and one of my teachers I went to a vocational school where we studied computer science for 3 years, and we were taught programming. Math was always something that our teachers were always be like, this is something that you really need to understand if you want to do programming. So, I think that that's a pretty understood concept. I think people kind of get that, yes, you have to know math and be somewhat good at math if you want to be good at programming. But I guess that's my opinion, even though that's what I was taught growing up. But I've experienced that is the truth.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
It's just I just laughed because it sounded funny, but that's my
Yeah,
opinion. But
exactly.
life will tell you that it's true.
Exactly. So, but I think it's great. I love it. What I'm doing is that I'm practicing programming every day for like 30 minutes or something like that, and hopefully I'll get better at it. Okay, so that's it for Python. We're gonna go down to the IT professional certificate. You're taking that one too, so I'm just gonna go ahead and hand it over to you, and maybe you can give your opinions about that.
I think it's so far so good. I really enjoy it. I can see now how much time I wasted in college, like, um, learning at your own pace is so much better. I think, and it's so much more focused and less fluff. And imagine a professor walks in, he's just not feeling it. He's tired, doesn't want to be there, and so he kind of looks at his book, he looks down, he's like, oh man, I don't want to do this. And he decides, you know what, class, I'm just going to teach this one little part, and that's all for today. You drove 30 minutes or however long to go to that class because the professor's too tired. He doesn't, or you don't even want to deal with it. You're just like, you know what? Oh, man, I don't even want to be here right now. And your mind, even though you're there, your mind's somewhere else, and you're just like not in the mood. A self-taught course, not self-taught, a self-driven course that you set your own pace at. I mean, the benefits are so amazing to me.
Mm-hmm.
You have to definitely
Yeah,
have a
absolutely.
gear toward it, but yeah. What are you gonna say?
Yeah, I mean, on one thing that one issue that you have when you study in a classroom is that you're not the only student, right? If you're waiting on an answer for the professor, you have to wait on the other students and things like that. Yeah, so that's another advantage of going self-paced. Sometimes I know in college, because I work for a college, for a university actually, I know that sometimes, or I used to work before the coronavirus started. Some students, their program is too slow for them. They're quick. They're quick learners. Stuff like they have a lot of aptitude. They're disciplined. Stuff like that. But for other students, it's too fast. For other students, they don't have enough time to grasp the concepts. So that's another advantage of being of or in the universities though. Let me finish that point. Uh, you don't have an option. You kind of have to go at the pace of the curriculum and at the pace of the professor. But when it's self-paced, you go at your own pace, whether that is slower or is faster. So that's another advantage. I personally have a pet, even though I worked for the university, and you know I might go back to it probably um, when it opens again. I do have a pet peeve against sometimes universities because they can be very expensive. I'll tell you this for people that are thinking about education. Um, um, University can be a good thing if you decide to go and pay $5,000 per course in a university. It can be a good thing, but just remember this: it costs $5,000. You better take advantage of it. And taking advantage of it does not mean sitting on a classroom and listening to what your professor said, and that's it. Take advantage means you have to communicate with the other students. You have to collaborate. You have to work on whatever you're studying often on your own. But yeah, you have to be involved in that community of people that are studying and supporting each other. Otherwise, because that's the only advantage that you get on a college, and that is a huge advantage, by the way. I cannot stress that enough. Having someone, another person that is going through the same course, which, by the way, I'm happy that you're going through it now, because now we can maybe talk about it each other and whatnot. If we are stuck or we need help, we can talk about it with each other. That is a huge element to making progress and sharpening a skill. It's being with other people that are like-minded, that are trying to also sharpen that same skill. So, and that's something that a self-paced course might not be able to give you as easily. You can get it in forums and stuff like that, but it's not the same. However, yeah. So just think about it hard if you're gonna go to college. I would say try all this online education first before you decide to go to college out there.
I will say this: it is a business. College is a business, so
yeah, absolutely. Especially if it's a private college, for sure. Yeah,
they're not in it to teach you; they're in it to make money.
And sadly, some colleges, really, that's just very, how do you say that? Very noticeable. I don't know.
Yeah.
Very clear. Some college will do a good job simply because they understand that to become big, like the Academy of Arts, which is a huge college, they do have to produce good talent. Otherwise, people are not going to go to the college, right? So this university that I work for has a lot of people in the industry have come out of it, and the students do amazing work. A lot of the students do amazing work. So some college will try a little bit because they know that there's some stake in the business. But for the most part, I went to a college, and it completely felt like what you said. I don't even want to say the name of the college. I don't want to talk trash about it. I guess you can look it up on my resume. But it wasn't a very good college. It was very much a business, and it was like the only good thing that I got from it was that, like I said, I was surrounded with other people that were interested in the same thing, and we were able to support each other and create networks and stuff like that, or do networking or whatever it is. So are you surprised? Have you learned anything from the certificate? Do you feel like you've learned?
Oh yeah. How would I put it as far as IT background? I'm the guy who always helps someone figure out their IT issues by going online and figuring out for myself. Someone asks me, "Hey, why is this not working?" or blah blah blah, and so I'll go and figure it out. So I have IT experience, and I have been used in that facet and that role in several institutions or previous jobs, IT liaison and stuff like that. But I do feel like my IT experience was always very limited, just because I never really dived into it personally. I never really cared about the components of a computer and binary code and blah 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 blah. Every time someone talked about it, I shut down. Like, oh, okay. But now going into it, it's pretty interesting, and I think it's the flow of it's pretty good so far.
Yeah. Do you think you'll continue doing it? Do you think you'll finish it?
Yeah, that's the goal.
What's how they ask you how long is it going to take you, or how long you think it's going to take you? How long do you think it'll take you?
So they said it takes 3 to 6 months. I guess 3 to 6 weeks. I'm thinking. I don't know.
Do you think you'll do it in 3 to 6 weeks?
I think I'm having a hard time gauging it because I can't find, like, I guess if I looked carefully on Coursera, I could see the whole outline of the course, but I'm just too lazy to do that.
Yeah. So I think my goal was to finish it in a month, essentially. Well, actually, my goal was to do 1 week per day, right? So each course has 6 weeks, so that means that each course would be 6 days. But then you add to that it's 5 course. So 6 times 5, that's 30. So that's a month. If you do one week a day, it's a month. But I've already not been able to do that, mostly because I was doing also the automation with Python, and I already paid for the automation with Python for 1 month. So I'm going to continue doing the automation with Python 1 for the end of the month and keep working on it and keep going through those courses. So I'm going a little bit slower because of that. I do one day and one another day. So in total, it would now, to finish them both, it was going to take me about 2 months. I'm kind of thinking, but yeah. Anyway, it's fun. One thing that I will let you know though is that I mean, it just kind of depends on what, and this is not just for you, but this is for everyone that decides to take a course like this, is that having a certificate doesn't really mean that much. It doesn't hurt to have that in your resume, but it doesn't really mean that much, especially if the company that gave you, or the institution that gave you the certificate, is not very well known. Now, Google is very well known, but they don't have a reputation in education. They're creating that right now. So far with these courses, I'm pretty happy. They're actually more. When I started this course, the IT course, I was just so bored, and I was like, I know all of this already. Like, I had the speed on like 1.5 for the videos, just so that I could just hurry up. And I started just like skipping to the quizzes. I wouldn't even like look at the videos, just skip to the quiz. But I was surprised how quickly I had to stop doing that. I was like, by the third week, I was like, I just finished the third week, but by the third week, I jumped to the quiz. I was doing that thing, and I had to be like, oh, actually, I don't know what to do in this quiz.
Mm-hmm.
Later, after I did the videos and I went to the quiz, later I was like, oh, actually, I could have done it. It's just that I didn't do it because I read a few things that kind of scared me off. But I have learned things that I didn't know already, so I'm happy about that. So that means that after the first course is done and we go into the other courses, I'm definitely gonna be learning a lot, because also my IT experience is very limited. I've always, like you, have been the IT person for my family, for my friends, in my places of work. I've always been the person that solves. I'm a lab tech, so it relates a lot to what IT does. But my background in it was also surprisingly limited, in terms of like connecting remotely to other computers, in terms of like getting the command prompt up and typing codes directly, like simple codes like ipconfig, so that you get the information about your computer, like the IP address of your computer and stuff like that. That's stuff that I've done before, but it's stuff that I've never memorized. So now I'm never gonna forget, because of the way that I'm approaching it now with the certificate. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool. I'm excited, and they use have you done any of the labs already with Quick Labs?
Are they not part of the main course?
Yeah, so I think you do them in the third week, by the end of the third week.
Okay, so I haven't yet.
Yeah, so the Google has something called Quick Labs, and what they do is really cool, because they connect you to a remote to a virtual machine. A virtual machine is essentially an OS in a server that mimics a real computer. So you go into Linus, the operating system, and a virtual machine that has Linus, and a virtual machine that has Windows, and then you can they can create real IT scenarios.
Oh, that's cool.
For you through those Quick Labs. So it's going to be really fun. You'll do the first one by the end of the third week, and I'm sure you're going to find that interesting, because they're going to make you use the shell, the SSH. What's that stand for? I forget what does that stand for. See, I already need to brush up. But a shell. Where am I? What is SSH? I want to Google it. See, this is what IT people do. We just Google stuff all the time.
Yeah.
By the way, that's all it is. Secure shell. That's what it's called. A secure shell, which is a connection that you make with one computer to another computer. You know how they I think you probably already they mentioned the program PuTTY, PUTTI, PuTTY.
They might have, yeah.
Maybe that's something that they go on the third week. But anyway, this has been a long episode. Do you have anything else to say?
No, that's it.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Hope this episode was educational for you, and the information was valuable. We'll catch you in 2 weeks. See you around.
Listen to some end credits.
TEA Talk, or T Talk, is a product of TEA Talk Productions. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe. You can also support the show on patreon.com. Link is on the description below. For questions, concerns, thoughts, and ideas, please email us at ttalkproductions@gmail.com. You can also leave us a comment on YouTube or use the DM system on Patreon or Instagram. We're available on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Patreon.
We're